Hi everybody, welcome to the feedback video of week 3. We again received a lot of drawings which we will discuss today.
So let's start this week's discussion with this contribution by Pietro Olioso, who has made a design for a rowing course around his hometown of Verona in Italy. And what is very clear in this contribution is the division in the 3 layers that we have discussed: a natural layer, a cultural layer, and an urban layer. And if I zoom into the first map, it is very clearly visible that the natural layer of this area of the outskirts of Verona consists of a river, of a stream, and the flowing forms of hills, in between which there is a valley. And this valley is cultivated through this grid pattern of agricultural plots, which is in big contrast to the more flowing lines of the natural landscape. And also there's an urban landscape. Here we see it, how the city of Verona is growing into the north and, according to Pietro, will probably take over much of this valley. And it is exactly here that he has designed his rowing course, which we can see here. He has positioned the rowing course exactly on the border between the natural landscape and the cultural landscape. We zoom in here onto the flowing lines of the hills and the regular grid that is in the valley. And even though perhaps Verona will grow into this valley at some later stage, the rowing course will fixate, in a way, the agricultural grid that is there now.
If we look at this example from Heike, she's from the city of San Francisco. This is the delta area of San Francisco. The natural layer of the city of this delta area consists of the coastline, the cliffs, the beach, and also the mountains, which you can see in the back of this picture. A part of this delta area was cultivated into the marina and the piers of this area. The urban elements of this city are the famous Golden Gate Bridge and also the Auckland Bridge. Here we can see the northern part of the city, which follows a clear grid. And in the back of the city we can see the high-rise of the financial market district. If we look at the design proposal from Heike, we can see that she chose to build a rowing course in existing marina infrastructure, and that this infrastructure also follows the grid of the urban layer.
In this proposal from Carlos Martinez Munoz from Lima, we can see that he uses the current situation as a guideline to state where he wants to make his intervention. Here's the river and here's another river. So in this area quite often floodings occur. So he says we can try to use the rowing course as an overflow from river water, so the flooding happens more regulated. The rowing course can also generate more social activities, and for example we can design pedestrian paths around this area, so we create a natural hub where leisure can take place.
So as one of the final contributions of today, we go to Chicago, to this illustration by Veronica Zhang. And most of all, we like to show you this picture because the map making is so beautiful. Here are the 3 layers again: the natural layer of Chicago, with the Chicago River visible here and Lake Michigan over here; the cultural layer, which is of course in Chicago the grid pattern that was not only in Chicago but basically all over the Midwest of the United States, of which this is but one example; and the architectural layer with some of the highlights in the area. And if we zoom in on the maps, we see that Veronica has handcrafted these drawings in a beautiful way with felt pen and handwriting, making the maps both very legible and very beautiful. And her proposal is to include the rowing course in Lake Michigan itself, with only the clubhouse and the parking facility on the land side. Even though Veronica's rowing course is invisible, her rowboats move perpendicular up and down in Lake Michigan in the same way as the other piers of Chicago do, and making her rowing course actually a very architectural element in the city. The last one we would like to show today is this one by Reinaldo Troconis, who made a GIF file of Caracas City in Venezuela. And he explains the layers in an animated way, saying that the natural layer in Caracas is, of course, the mountains that the city is lying next to and the river. And there is a very strongly defined cultural layer with an urban grid of which this city is the result. And his rowing course will be included here in this area, lying in between these grid lines. So thank you very much for your contributions this week, and we look forward very much to see your material for next week when we look back on the work of the urban metabolism exercise.